Welcome to the Full Monty and a Cup of Joe podcast. I'm here with my good friend Monty Putnam. I'm Joe Matthew. I am a sports writer for Heartland College Sports. We cover the Big 12 Conference, all the sports in the Big 12. I write for them and have been doing so for about 5 years. And I also run a website called kstatejoe.com where I cover K-State sports. And my friend Monty has agreed to join me for a podcast this season. Monty, how you doing?
I'm great. Hello, everyone. My name is Monty Putnam, as Joe has said. I'm 48 years old, live down here in South Carolina. I'm a South Carolina Gamecock fan and a adopted K-State Wildcat fan. My experience with podcasts begins today, right now, actually. So you're all here for the de-virginizing of my podcast experience, I guess you could say. As far as what I have to contribute, the athletics area, I played the game of football up until high school. Could have played at a few small colleges, but decided that Uncle Sam and the U.S. Army needed my talents more than some unknown college. So there you go and have that. I am also a former football official. So the bulk of my sports knowledge and experience has been with football, but I played baseball also. Tried to play basketball, that didn't work too well. And I'm primarily an SEC guy and ACC just by virtue of where I live. But since becoming friends with a lot of the K-State faithful, I've developed a following for the Big 12, and I just generally follow football in general on any level. I'll even watch a high school game. I try and catch as much college as possible, and my Sundays are filled with the NFL. So there you have it. And if we branch off into different topics, that's just part of who we are and what we do. So, Joe, I'll throw the ball back to you and let you get it going.
Yeah, we have a lot of the same interests and just so you know, we met on it was Twitter at the time. It's now X, and we had a mutual friend named Ben. He goes by Ozzy on X, and you two had kind of had some friendly banter back and forth on there, and got, ended up becoming really good friends because of it. So it's kind of a funny. Why don't you tell the story on how you kind of became a K State fan, and we'll start with that.
Well, that's actually pretty funny. Those who know me best and have known me for a while will tell you that I am generally a mouthy person and I can be obnoxious. And when it was announced that Texas and Oklahoma were coming to the SEC, being a SEC homer, like I definitely was at that point, I took to Twitter and just had a little fun. We'll call it what it is, shit posting the Big 12 and basically bashing them and dragging them through the mud and down talking them, because they had lost two of their marquee teams to my quote unquote conference, the SEC. So I took an opportunity to bash those guys and razz them a little bit, and that's when I met Ozzy slash Ben slash Everyman a Wildcat, and me and him started a little bit of bantering and talking back and forth. And I realized, hey, this guy's actually pretty funny. And so I started following him and following some more K-State people. And then one fateful day, I posted on Twitter that if I ever had the chance to go to a K-State game, that I would go to Manhattan and go to one. And within 5 minutes, I had several offers for free tickets. So at that point, I was obliged, and it was the Iowa State game, Farmageddon and Harley Day, and that's going on what now? 3 years ago now, Joe.
Yeah, I
2021
think
season,
so. Yeah.
2021. So drove all the way to Manhattan, 17 hours from down here in the pine trees in South Carolina, and absolutely had a blast. Fell in love with K State, just the campus, the university, the people, and the team. And so I've tried to go back as often as I can, and glad to say I'm going this year for my first K State and versus the Chokehawks game. So we'll hopefully pull the Cats through to what is it now, 15 in a row? Gee whiz.
Yeah, yeah,
That's not even a rivalry. That's domination, is all that. That's just embarrassment.
that's right. It is. So anyway, I reached out to you way back when, and then I did a blog post about you and
That's right.
interviewed you for that, and that's still one of my most read posts of all time, and people still are finding it and reading it. I still get a lot of activity on that. It's funny, but
I
anyway,
remember that day that I went to Aggieville, and you guys told me you were going to be at I can't remember the bar. It's right there in the bottom story of the hotel. It's the one that the former player owns. What was it?
yeah, Goolsby's.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, these guys are setting me up. I'm gonna walk in this bar and they're gonna see me and I'm gonna get my ass whipped. And sure enough, I walked in and there was Joe, and we sat down and had a couple of cool beverages. And I'm glad to say we've been friends ever since, and I love and cherish that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you made the trip and are making the trip again this year. We're gonna have a good time. So
Heck yeah.
anyway, we've become friends, and we have a lot of the same interests. We both like Star Wars movies and different, like the Marvel movies and stuff like that. We both align pretty much the same way politically, even though we have a couple disagreements there from time to time, but nothing that's going to ruin our friendship or anything like that. So we thought we would start this podcast, and we're both huge sports fans. And I thought we would start out by, since college football season is upon us, by talking a little college football in this first episode, and then this thing is going to grow over time. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but I think at the beginning, we're going to try to keep it sports related since, football's here and people love football.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to talk about there. And the first thing I thought we were going to talk about here is going to be the playoff. And I for one am glad to see the expansion of the playoff. However, if you ask me, it's still not enough. I don't think that 12 is enough. And there's plenty of people that say that 12 is too many. I personally have a big problem with things like happened this past season with Florida State. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. Florida State went undefeated. They won their conference, a quote power, I guess what was then a Power Five conference, what is now a Power Four conference. But to me, that was just absolutely incredulous that Florida State, champions of the ACC, undefeated, was left out of the quote unquote playoff. And this has happened in the past too. It's happened with teams that probably didn't have a legitimate shot to win it, but they should have still been in it, I think. Like what was it? Central Florida had the undefeated year where they claimed the national title. I think
Right.
Utah may have done it. I think Cincinnati actually got into what was then the playoff, didn't they? And they got eliminated. But I digress there because the point is, if you do your part to have a one loss or two loss season in any other level of football, that gets you into your playoff. And
Right.
I've always said and maintained that to me, it is absolutely mind blowing that major college football, being Division 1A major college football, is probably the second or third most watched sport in America. The NFL probably has a solid grasp on the number one spot, but college football is definitely watched by millions. And I can't believe that for a sport that popular with that much of a fan base that draws that much attention, that they have the worst playoff system of any sport. Literally, there's not another level of football that has a worse, more ineffective playoff system than major Division One college football. The other divisions of college football have a real playoff. The NFL has a real playoff. Even high school has a real playoff. Rec leagues have real playoffs, and it's ridiculous to me that we can take Division One college football and whoever the imaginary people are can just plug in whatever teams they think deserve to be there. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's supposed to be the quality product. And I just don't see it. Do we need 64 like basketball? Yeah, probably not. That may be a little bit ridiculous. But I mean, the NFL seems to make it work just fine with what, 16? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't see why we can't have more. I don't understand personally this step to 12. I think it should have just been 16, and let's start there.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
agree with
thought.
you there. So there's a lot of to unpack on what you said. I mean, the reason there hasn't been a expanded playoff, and the reason it's taken so long is these guys that run these bowl games, especially specifically the Rose Bowl. And I was even this year, I was looking at the playoff schedule, and the Rose Bowl is going to be a playoff game played on New Year's Day. So
Yep.
they probably demanded that in order to agree to be part of this. But that's another whole nother topic.
And I'm not sure I want that to go away. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I want the Rose Bowl parade to go away, or the Rose Bowl, or the Orange Bowl, or whatever it may be. I hated it when we started monetizing these bowl games, and it becomes ridiculous, like the whatever the Dell Laptop Bowl. I mean, who wants to go win that, or the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we should have kept those original names to the bowls and made them part of the playoff system and incorporate the sponsorships with them. Okay, the FedEx Orange Bowl is going to determine who plays, in the one of the teams that plays in the national championship game. Okay, so you make the bowl people happy, make sponsors happy, but you still have a playoff. I think there's a way to make all that work together.
Yeah, and I think the layout they have with 12 teams is the best they can do it. Four buys, which I don't like buys. That's why I agree with you. We should have just gone to 16 teams because I think it's going to go to 16 teams eventually anyway. Four buys, so seeds 5 through 12, but the higher seed will host the first round on their at home, basically, on a campus site. And then in the next round, they're going to play on neutral sites. So for a 12 team playoff, I like that format. What do you think about those first round games being the higher seed getting home field advantage for that?
you know, it works for the NFL, but the NFL has a much different way of getting those teams plugged into the playoff. And so it works for them to have that first round bye for the
Mm-hmm.
division champions, or whoever clinches first, et cetera. They get that first round bye. So it seems like that's kind of what they're working towards, the model that they're working towards. I'm not going to say I'm a huge fan for it with college football, because I think that in college sports, which are supposed to be amateur, even though they're not anymore, but I think everybody should have equal time to prepare, equal time to rest, etc. And so I would like to see everybody have a week off, or whatever it's going to be before you start the playoff. I myself am not a big fan of the top four having that bye. I don't care for it on the college level. On the
Yeah.
pro level, it's fine, but like we were just talking, if we do go to 16 teams, or if we change the landscape of college football in the divisions, which I do see happening, which that's a whole nother can of worms. But just to give a little bit of background on where I'm going with that, I see a future of American college football of four divisions across the country. And I think it's going to be, maybe 4 20 or 25 team divisions, or whatever the number needs to be to make it work. I don't guess you could have an odd number there. They probably have to be even numbers.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think it's heading. I think if we get to that point, then you could say, okay, now we can do a first round bye, and you're basically modeling it entirely after the NFL. But I don't agree with the first round bye at this point in just the 12 game playoff.
And Kyle Whittingham is Utah's coach. He was interviewed in the last week, and he said, "Yeah, this is going to expand again within the next 2 to 4 years." So he already knows it's coming. I think a lot of people know it's coming. That there's going to be a whole nother round of realignment. And I agree. I don't know if we'll get rid of the conference names. I don't know if the college football schools are ready for that yet, but there's going to have to be some sort of reorganization and realignment eventually. And
Yeah,
I think they're looking at the NFL model to do that.
Yeah, I mean, even the NFL. I mean, the writing's on the wall for the NFL. They're even trying to grow even more. You've already got talk, talk, quote unquote, whatever, sources confirm, etc. Right? But I mean, you've got the NFL playing in Europe now. You've got the NFL.
Yep.
They're playing in parts of Latin America. They've got certainly interest down there. They've played in Mexico. I think they've played in Central America. I believe. I don't know. I know they've played in Mexico, but
Mexico City, yeah.
yeah, and there's definitely talk out there already of the 18 game schedule. I was listening to Mark Ryan on air earlier today, and he was talking a little bit about how basically they're already planning on an 18 game schedule and cutting the preseason down to 2 preseason games. So yeah, it's definitely going to expand, and with NIL and with everything that's going on with college right now, with the lid being taken off of that, that Pandora's box is now open. The money game is in full effect, and everybody's going to want to cut. So this is only going to expand more. I think you're absolutely right there.
Hmm. Now, I have an issue with the 12-team playoff. I'm glad they expanded it, and we already talked about I wish they'd go to 16. But here's the issue I have. I looked at the AP top 25. The top 12 teams, five are SEC teams, four are Big Ten teams, one's ACC, Florida State, one Big 12, Utah, and then Notre Dame. I think they're setting this up so that it's going to be SEC and Big Ten heavy. And I think these other conferences like the ACC and the Big 12 are only going to get one team in. Now, for example, say K State and Utah, they don't play in the regular season, but if everything plays out how people think, they're going to play each other in the Big 12 championship game. Well, say that game is 34-33 and Utah wins it. As an example, say both teams went undefeated the whole season, they're both undefeated, and after that game, K State has one loss. I think K State might get left out of the playoff if they're not ranked ahead of all these SEC and Big Ten teams. So I don't like that about this, about how this is going to be set up and maybe play out.
Well, I mean, TCU did it, but I think that the variables that are going to drive that are going to be, who else is out there, and the one monkey wrench that can always get thrown into anything, and I hate to say it, I know I'm going to tick off a certain fan base, but Notre Dame has the ability to always mess that up. I don't. Notre Dame can go 2-10 and start the next season somehow ranked in the top 20. And
They're ranked seventh, and I didn't think they would be ranked that high.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. They don't have to play a conference championship game technically, right? Because they
Yeah.
are
Mm-hmm.
not in the ACC for football, so they don't have that game to play. So I don't agree with that because all things aren't equal. So I think Notre Dame can mess that up. Now the example you're giving was say either Utah or K State, a one loss team. I think that applies to both of them equally.
Yeah.
Um, I think either one of them may the one loss team may get left out unless you're looking at say an undefeated SEC team and an undefeated ACC team, and then the next closest team in the SEC or the ACC, whichever, has 3 losses. I think in that case, then yes, that one loss K State or Utah team would get in of a 3 loss Alabama or a 3 loss Florida or whoever. But I think you're correct. If your SEC and Big Ten teams are sitting there with one loss or maybe even 2 losses, yeah, there is a very good chance they're going to get selected ahead of a one loss Big 12 team, and the Big Ten team is going to get selected. A one loss Big Ten team might get selected, or excuse me, a 2 loss Big Ten team might get selected over a one loss ACC team.
Yeah.
So there is that Big Ten and SEC bias out there, and just to illustrate that, let me throw in real quick here. And I'm not a Florida State fan, but I want to go back to Florida State. Did you hear what happened this week with ESPN, with them making some budget cuts and restructuring?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the three people that they let go, okay, the three people that they let go, all three have direct ties to Florida State, and they are all three have been outspoken about what happened to Florida State.
Huh.
Um,
That I
now
didn't know.
is that yeah. I can't even remember the name. I know that the one guy is what's his name? He's the loud guy that's always out there on Saturday on game day or whatever.
Well, Robert Griffin Jr. or Robert Griffin III. I'm sorry. Well, he was one of them, but
right. And then
there was that one lady. I don't remember her name now.
What is it? Sam Ponder?
Yeah, Sam Ponder. That's it.
Okay. Now she's married to a Florida State graduate.
Okay.
And the third guy, God, what's his name? I could see him. He's the guy that's he's always taking his shirt off and acting crazy on the ESPN set on College Game Day. And
Pat McAfee?
Yeah, Pat McAfee. Yep. And he's got, I think he went to Florida State, or somebody in his family went to Florida State. I don't know. You'd have to look into it to make sure I'm not telling you the wrong thing. But I know for a fact that what they were saying on the radio earlier this week, all three of them have direct ties to Florida State. And they've all three been outspoken about what happened to Florida State. And to me, that's just a little coincidental. So it's like, don't come again. It's like ESPN and Disney are sitting there. I mean, they're telling you, they're wagging their finger at you, don't come against us. Don't make us mad, because if you do, you know what's going to happen. And
it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
And you've seen it happen as a K-State fan.
Oh, yeah.
And since I've been following K-State, I've even noticed it that, I got to sit there and search and look and try and find the K-State game on Saturday. Meanwhile, there's some crap SEC game, Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, play into a 3-0 overtime game or whatever the case may be, while you got a great Big 12 game going on, but it's the nature of what it is. It's the guys that control the money, that pull the strings. That's what they want to see. And it sucks. It's not fair, and it sucks.
Yeah, there's just a little margin for error for teams like K-State. That's always been the case.
Absolutely. You got to be perfect.
Yeah. But at least if they win the conference and that conference championship game, they'll get a bye in the playoffs. So, that's got to be the goal.
I hope that that's the way it works now. Like I said, like I led off with, we saw Florida State take one on the chin last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, if I'm an undefeated K-State Big 12 champion and I'm sitting there looking at a 2-loss Alabama that just won the SEC championship, or whatever the case may be, I'm saying, oh boy, here I am. I went undefeated. I won my conference, and I'm going to get left out of this thing again. Now, maybe not with 12 teams. But prior to the 12 teams, the chance of getting left out was a lot greater. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, number 13 is going to be irritated. It's always going to be something,
Yeah, but at least having 12 in is better than having 4.
Much better, yeah.
It's even better than having 8. But I'm still, I'm with you. Let's hurry up and get to 16. Let's get to 16 and start from there, because that's where we know it's going.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Alabama. What do you think with Nick Saban retiring? What do you think they're going to do this year? They got Washington's coach, DeBoer. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. I think they'll be fine. What's his name? DeVore?
Yeah, DeBoer, I think.
Well, Saban's been hanging around. He's not, he's retired, but he still has an office at the stadium. He still has an office there. So he's
kind of like Bill Snyder.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you watched any of the baseball regionals this year, like old Jack Leggett, at Clemson, who's been retired for a few years, coming out of the dugout to argue with an umpire, and he's not even technically on the coaching staff. So, yeah, but Saban's going to be around. He's going to be there. And look, Alabama's one of those teams that it's like, I mean, literally, you could almost make a mannequin coach.
Yeah.
And if you just call the right plays with the players that they get that just want to go there, I mean, you're going to have stud offensive linemen. Everybody knows that the eyes are going to be on Alabama. The NFL's watching Alabama. So, players, of course, want to go there. They want to be a part of that. So Alabama basically gets to pick who they want. And that's not going to change unless they just bomb completely, which I don't see them doing.
Yeah, not with that coach. They shouldn't. But
I think Georgia's sitting firmly up there at the top, and I think Alabama, LSU, maybe Ole Miss might be a surprise this year. I think Ole Miss.
I saw they're supposed to be pretty good this year. So.
Yeah. So you look at Alabama. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat them. Like I said, unless they just suffer just a litany of injuries and they're down. Their first two quarterbacks and they're down a couple of offensive linemen right off the bat. I mean, Alabama's going to win 8, 9, 10 games. I mean, they're just,
well, they still got more talent than anybody they're going to play this year. So
exactly, yeah.
Maybe Georgia, but
I don't know their schedule. All the SEC schedules are different this year than they've been for the last several years because there is no more East and West. So getting rid of the East and West is going to make things a lot different. I know South Carolina has, I think we've got LSU, then Oklahoma, then Alabama, I think. I don't know if all those games are back to back. I know we've got a couple of grueling ones back to back. I know we've got on the schedule, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss and Clemson on our schedule. So that's 5 right there that for South Carolina, for a team like South Carolina, you got to look at and be, good God. I mean,
might be tough to make a bowl game this year.
Right. And everybody's upset because Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks didn't go to a bowl game last year, and they should have. They had their chances. But, when you look out there and you see, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Clemson, and you look at those 5, you got to kind of look and say, all right, well, where are the other 7? How are we going to get 7? Okay, well, Old Dominion, Vanderbilt, maybe Kentucky. Kentucky's kind of owned South Carolina. So, I don't know. I think right now in the SEC, everything is still going to go through Georgia, Alabama, and LSU pretty much. And I think that's the way it's going to be for a while, unless Tennessee jumps up or Florida somehow rebuilds themselves. It's going to be those 3 teams in the SEC for a while. But I wanted to ask you, now that Texas and Oklahoma are out of the Big 12, and that was such a power. Those two were such a power for so long in that conference. Is the Big 12 even across the board, or is it the top 8 teams? Is it the top 6 teams? I mean, who's really got a chance to win the Big 12? Because we got radio show hosts down here locally. They're even talking about like Kansas. And they're saying, they were saying the other day that the Kansas K-State game may actually be the Big 12 championship.
There's probably 6 teams that have a shot at it. And, the newcomers to the league, like Houston and BYU and UCF, they really struggled last year. And they're going to probably struggle for a couple of years to kind of get up on that level. And the schools that have been in the league for a while. I would say K-State, Utah, Arizona, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and KU. It's probably between those 6 would be my guess. Between those 6, the talent level is about even with all those schools. So that's going to make it really competitive this fall. And that's why it's anyone's to take, Now, Utah fan will tell you they're the far and away favorite and they're way better than everyone else. But I just don't see that. Any team that's come into the Big 12 has struggled. period. No one's come in and dominated. Utah might do it, but I'll believe it when I see it. But I think it's anybody's to take out of those 6 teams. And I think between K-State and Utah, I think those are probably the favorites. And I would throw Oklahoma State in there too. Is the three most likely.
Yeah. I think Oklahoma State is one of Oklahoma State's like one of those teams that could almost be a great team, like a really good team. Because there's been some good Oklahoma State teams through the years. And there's been good K-State. There's all the Big 12 teams have had good teams through the years, but it's you got Texas and Oklahoma right there that if you're going to go any further, you're going to have to beat those guys, and that's held a lot of the Big 12 up, I think, in years past.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Colorado here? What's the thoughts there on Deion and the Buffaloes?
Overrated.
Man, I tell you what, it looks like that thing got out of hand quick, huh?
Yeah, I've never even been quiet about this. I'm not a fan of Deion. Never have been. I didn't like him when he played. I don't like him as a coach, and it's all hype. He's always been all hype, and his team is all hype. I mean, they came out and they won a few games in the knock-on last year, and they were the darling, and then they lost most every game. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Ted Lasso of the Big 12. Just hey, let's bring in this guy because he played the game, and I don't think Ted Lasso even played soccer, but let's bring in this coach just because he is who he is, and he's an image and he's a brand, and we're gonna make him be the coach. And it wasn't a good move.
No.
I don't think it was a good move. Maybe there'll be a surprise this year. Maybe Colorado will come out and go 7-5 or 8-4 and prove everyone wrong. I don't think that's what's going to happen, just because the news that I've seen, it seems like there's a lot of dissension, a lot of problems in that locker room, a lot of personal issues, player to player type issues. And that can't be good. I mean, you got to have a team, you got to work together, you got to be together and sacrifice together. And it just seems like that team's kind of losing control of itself. Mm-hmm. If what they're saying on the radio is correct and true.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. They're going to have to show me before I'll buy into any of the hype. Yep. All right. We've only got a couple minutes left, and I'm going to put you on the spot and say, if you had to choose today the 2 teams that are going to play in the national championship game in January, who are you picking?
Georgia.
And who are they beating in that game? So I'm asking you for your top 2.
I mean, I hate to say it because I hate them and I always have, but I mean, I think you got to go with Ohio State.
Yeah. We're on the same page. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Which, if Ohio State stays true to form, they'll just show up and get beaten by another SEC team. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what K-State transfer Will Howard does.
Yeah.
He's the starter now, so
that's crazy. I didn't see that coming. Why didn't he just go to the NFL? I mean, it seems to me like if you could be the starter at Ohio State, you could go to the league. I mean,
I don't think he was going to get drafted.
I guess it seems to me like if you're the starting quarterback for Ohio State or any other major, top 10 program, I mean, it seems like you'd be good enough to make it to the league, but I guess not. Everybody, there's always somebody that busts. But yeah, if I had to bet money right now, I'd bet Georgia and Ohio State, and Georgia wins.
All right, and we'll evaluate that as the season goes on.
I can tell you who it's not going to be. It's not going to be South Carolina. Yeah, I enjoyed this. This is great.
Yeah, our first episode in the books, and we'll maybe do this a couple times a week if we can get our schedules to work, and at least once a week. So
sure,
we'll see how it goes. Everybody like and share for us, and we'll have a fun football season ahead of us to talk about. So
Very soon. Very soon.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you.
All right, Joe. Have a good one. Talk
You
to you
too,
soon.
man. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.